Yo, what's up, YouTube? Look, I literally just minutes ago finished watching American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story, for the second time. I watched it twice to be able to get my full thoughts, and I'm very eager to go ahead and without any further ado, just dive in and tell you guys what I think about this movie.
Go long. Go long. Set up.
There's a lot to digest and there's a lot to break down in this movie. And this is one of those movies where with the Erwin Brothers, you're going to get a higher standard of quality than the majority of Christian content. When you have high quality content, it's significantly harder to critique. And I'm not saying this is my goal to just critique everything. Let me tell you something. I hate this movie because there's nothing I can critique in it. My life is over as a YouTuber. I've had about a... But it's significantly harder to notice flaws inside of the storyline because they're much better combined with more excellent storytelling. And so there was a lot that they did right with this movie. This was a really powerful, really emotional, and honestly, really enjoyable football movie. I don't even watch football movies like that, and I enjoyed this movie. Now, I would say Christians, for the longest time, have actually done very well with football movies, in my opinion. You have movies like the classic, kind of before the Christian movie movement really got underway, the Facing the Giants movie, which I think the Kendrick brothers actually did surprisingly well with that film. You have other films like Run the Race, which I really enjoyed that film. That film came out several years ago. You have When the Game Stands Tall. It's been a hot minute since I've seen that movie, but I remember it being fairly decent, and that was with Jim Caviezel. Christian movies have done very well with football movies. There's kind of this standard of quality.
Impressive!
And so I know one of the initial questions people are going to want to ask is, how does this movie fit in with that standard of quality? Does it hold it? Does it hold the bar? Does it raise the bar? Does it lower the bar? And after watching this movie, judging it just based on raw entertainment value alone, from more of a secular standpoint, I would quite possibly say this is the best Christian football movie ever made.
Ooh, that's good.
Perfect? No, not by any means. I'm gonna be breaking down some of the bones I have to pick with this movie, but it is an exceptional, very well done movie. First of all, this is the kind of story that people love, especially here in America. We love the underdog stories. We love the David versus Goliath stories.
Destiny. It belongs to the underdogs.
So to kind of break down this story, it's obviously about the life of Kurt Warner as he goes from being a kind of lowly college football player at the University of Iowa. I forget the full name of the school, but how he went from there to becoming an all-star MVP, star quarterback for the St. Louis Rams, and how he went from his humble beginnings to become who he was. He's drafted by the Packers, but they end up dropping him before he really has a chance.
Wish you well.
Wait, what?
We're letting you go.
No, you're letting me go? No. I just got here. You haven't even seen me play yet.
And he hits a point of his life where he's so low he's working at a supermarket. And we can overlay with that because I think a lot of us have worked those kind of 7.25 hour, I worked a minimum wage job at one point, and I understand what that's like, and we understand that, and it's that dream that anybody, no matter who you are, no matter at what point of life you are, can go and pursue your dreams. We love those kinds of stories, and it's very well told. First of all, props to Zachary Levi. I didn't know much about the guy. I've seen him in Shazam, and I know he had a lot of personality, and he did an incredible job in this movie. I think he's very likable. The acting in this film is top notch, and I will say this much: this movie is 100 times better than the trailer. I remember when the trailer came out, critiquing it for having no personality and didn't give a chance for Zachary Levi's personality to shine through. But in my opinion, very little of his personality actually shone through the trailer, and there's much more personality in the film. I almost have a bone to pick along the same line, because although the personalities in this film are incredible, I do feel like some of the dialogue is a little lackluster, a little basic. For example,
Let's go. Let's get after it.
Yes, sir. And coach. Thank you.
I feel like they could have just thought out some of this dialogue much better, but at the same time, they had big slam zinger lines like,
Winning doesn't always feel like winning, huh?
Never has.
Why is that?
Because it doesn't mean anything. You don't have someone to share it with.
So all in all, it kind of balances out, but I feel like they had a missed opportunity there to make almost Kurt more witty, because I know what Zachary Levi is capable of, and I feel like they under-implemented him to a degree. But I will say it's very good to see him being in Christian films, because I've heard he's a devout Christian. I don't know to what degree, and I'm not the one to judge how much of a Christian you are. But it's very good to see him in this film, in the upcoming film, The Unbreakable Boy. So when it comes to the football scenes of this movie, I won't say they're the greatest football scenes ever made. You know, they're very well shot, they're visually beautiful, they're very well directed. I wouldn't say they particularly raise the bar for football movies in general. I don't feel like they did anything that was never done before. But one thing that really did impress me was how later on in the movie, in the final NFL game where he's playing for the St. Louis Rams, they actually copy some of the actual shots from that game in real life, some of the actual plays from the football game shot for shot. And that was really impressive. Like, just know how much thought and work had to go into that behind the scenes was pretty incredible. Yo, I would never be able to do what the Erwin Brothers did. I don't even have a clue what's going on right now. And I really liked how much they balanced the football and personal life aspect of Kurt Warner. It's about Kurt Warner. It's not just about his football career, but it's about Kurt Warner as an individual. And I feel like they did a very good job. I would say it's about maybe 60-40 in favor of his personal life. It might have been 50-50, but they did a very good job balancing who Kurt Warner was behind the scenes. And maybe it's just the type of guy that I am, but when I watch a sports movie, I'm just as interested, if not more interested, in knowing who the person is behind the scenes as knowing who they are on the field. And so you really get to walk in Kurt Warner's shoes for close to 2 hours and see some of the powerful things that this man went through, and seeing he's just such a likable guy. He's very loyal. I would say he's just a very responsible guy.
What's your name, little man?
Zach.
That's a good name. My name's Kurt.
Now, this is not so much of a complaint with the movie. This is more of a stylistic preference. And this is more me just commenting on the Erwin Brothers style, because I've seen numerous of the Erwin Brothers movies. And I know from watching their movies, they tend to go with this style that's heavy on the inspirational side. And so watching an Erwin Brothers movie is like watching a 2-hour marathon of just straight on inspiration after inspiration after inspiration. Oh, this movie is just so inspiring. And you know, some people like that style. Some people enjoy that type of style. You know, obviously, you know, females might enjoy that more because inspirational or drama type films tend to appeal to them more. And so that's very much the style of film that you get with this movie. And I feel like they did very good with that, but at the same time, I feel like they missed an opportunity, because I felt like they were so focused on inspirational content that they really failed to kind of dive into some more deeper topics that they could have approached with this film.
Good, but it can be better.
And for those of you who are wondering, you know, this is obviously a Christian-themed football movie. The Christian message in this movie is very light, which I don't think I've ever criticized a film for this, but I always felt like it was lighter than it needed to be, and that they almost could have gone a little bit more overt with a gospel message. Not much more. They did pretty well with making it enjoyable by a secular audience, but there's very little about faith actually in this movie. It's more just about Kurt's football career and his personal life. And so for those of you who are wondering what to expect, there's not a lot when it comes to faith. There's nowhere near the level of Facing the Giants, not even close to the level of a movie like Run the Race. Definitely much lighter, and this almost seems to be kind of, I wonder if this is the direction the Erwin Brothers are going now. It's one of those things we'll just kind of have to see how they go with their films in the future. The characters in this film, not just Kurt, but the characters in this film are incredibly well portrayed. There's a very wide, colorful, and likable cast. One of the best lineup of characters I've ever seen in a Christian movie, honestly.
Brenda, is that the guy?
He's cute. Can you please just...
And he's so nice.
I know.
There's Kurt's personal buddy, like his football roommate. I don't remember what his first name was. They just called him Hud Nut or Hud. And he's incredibly likable guy.
Well, like dance, like line dance?
Like line dance and barn dance and all the dancing.
Oh man, it's gonna be great.
Brenda, who was Kurt's girlfriend, future wife, and incredible, likable character. And the romance between her and Kurt is very well done. It almost aired on the side of being too rushed. They met in a bar, and they almost ended up kissing in the first scene. And if you've seen any of my reviews, I go crazy when romance scenes are rushed and manufactured and feel forced. And they almost aired on that side, but they kind of pulled away at the last moment and actually gave the characters more time to develop a relationship. And it comes across very likable, and the romance is very well done. And I will say, for those of you who actually studied the movie and know there are some objectionable content from a Christian standard, I will be talking about that later. So I'm not saying everything about the romance was hunky-dory.
A naughty Christian film.
But the relationship between them was very well portrayed, of a woman who's kind of been burned in life by a past marriage, had 2 children, and you kind of have this other guy who was just what she needed to support her and understand her. So this is one of my biggest gripes. If I had to pick one of my biggest gripes with the movie, all of the changes that happened to Kurt Warner, because movies are all about change. It's about going from point A to point B and transforming and becoming a better person. That's what storytelling is about. And I feel like in this movie, all of Kurt Warner's changes in his life are typically external rather than internal. What does that mean? When you're storytelling, so you kind of have an overarching story structure that 90% of movies follow. You start with the status quo. The character is kind of in their comfort zone, in the world they've always known, and then you bring in a conflicting item, something that changes or challenges the status quo. So, for example, in this movie, that was Brenda, or the opportunity to become an NFL player. You challenge the status quo, and in order to reach that status quo, the character has to change something about their life. At the end of the movie, they reach a new status quo, but their new status quo, they are a new, transformed, and better person. That's how storytelling happens. That is the story structure 90% of movies follow. And movies that make the changes to the character external rather than internal often err on the side of coming across as very superficial and shallow, because nothing's changing on the character on the inside. And I don't want to say nothing changes on the inside of Kurt Warner in this movie, but I feel like they focus so much on his external changes. For example, getting a girlfriend and a wife, getting a new car, getting a house, getting a career in a football field. Those are all external changes, and those are great, and those are what drive the story. But at the end of the day, me, who's a person who struggles with real life and can't necessarily do all the things Kurt Warner does, I want to know, how does that translate into my life with my internal struggles that I experience? So what were Kurt Warner's internal changes in this movie? Unfortunately, I personally felt like there wasn't much that changed on the inside, which kind of makes him come across as a superficial character to an extent. He struggles, yes, but I wouldn't say he particularly changes his mind about anything or learns anything he didn't know before. You take the Kurt Warner at the end of the movie, and I feel like if you put him at the beginning of the movie, in a lot of ways he would do the same things that the Kurt Warner at the beginning of the movie had done, whereas he hadn't necessarily learned about a different approach to life. That, along with the element of focusing on just inspirational, made the movie kind of come across as superficial, where they could have dealt with more internal change and depth of character. Going back, I thought this was kind of a funny part of it. Wasn't not funny. Brenda's children, incredibly sweet children, incredibly likable. She has a son named Zach, who is actually blind, and he's one of the nicest and key characters in the movie.
Oh, you want to be a truck driver, huh?
A black truck driver.
And he's just incredibly supportive of this man he's never seen, who becomes his, father-in-law. And what's almost kind of funny about it is that she also has a daughter that the movie just completely forgets even exists. Like, she shows the daughter for a couple scenes. I almost feel like they swap. I think they might actually swap actors for the daughter, because she's really young and she's aging. And they just completely forget she even exists. Like, she's in some of the scenes in the movie, but she doesn't really say anything other than once or twice. Like, when it comes to the children, it's all about Zach. Zach is incredibly likable. I just thought that was kind of funny. Okay, so dealing with some of my other complaints with this movie, and most of you guys who actually checked in this movie probably know I was going here. There's several moral issues I have with this movie. First of all, the profanity in this movie kind of shocked me.
Steve, you said a bad language word.
How much profanity was in this movie, especially for a Christian film. Now, there, if I'm not mistaken, there were over 20 profanities or uses of God's name in vain. I was very shocked to see that. And I think 1 is too many, but 20 is just like, it's astronomical for a Christian movie. Movies that is very, very seldom ever even do that. And I'm not sure what the reason, why they even did that. It did not add anything to the movie. I don't know if that's just the direction the Erwin brothers are going as filmmakers. I feel as Christians, we're called to live above that. We're called to a higher standard than you know, our speech should be seasoned with grace. And it was just kind of disturbing to see that. And there is also some drinking in this movie.
Champagne glass with the Martinelli. Champagne glass with the Martinelli.
That didn't bother me as much. I know Christians are very touchy on this subject, and I'm kind of on the side that I cannot, from my knowledge of the scripture, see that the scripture condemns absolutely any and all types of drinking. But at the same time, I'm very, 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 very cautious about drinking inside of a group party kind of setting. And that does happen at least once or twice in this movie. Now, here's one of my biggest problems with this movie. And I understand you want to portray the events of what really happened accurately, but this is where I wish, and I don't think I've ever said this about a Christian movie, because usually Christian movies err on the opposite side, but I almost wish they had taken more of a strong narrative approach of actually portraying this as evil rather than kind of taking a hands-off approach. And in part of the story, Kurt Warner does actually move in with Brenda and her children before he's married to her. Now, at first, he moves in with her and her parents, which is kind of its own thing, still something, you know, I'm not necessarily all in for. But then later on in the movie, not only that, her parents end up moving to another state, and he ends up getting a place with just Brenda and her children. And that's obviously, and there are scenes of like them making out before they're married and different things like that. And so, you know, as much as I enjoyed the romance scenes of the movie, this definitely bothered me from a Christian perspective, because I know as Christians, that's not something we are supposed to be doing with our lives. And so it would have been completely different if he had in any form, not any form, but in some form, showed some type of committal to her in a form of marriage vows, but he did not do that until later in the film, to the extent that Brenda actually breaks up with him at one point in the movie before they get married. The breakup lasts like 5 minutes. But it's kind of disturbing to see that part of the story. But anyway, I think I've said everything that I have to say. 20 minute. How come my reviews are always 20 minutes long? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think. If you have any other suggestions for movies that I should review, please let me know, tell me. And with that, I'm out, man. I'm out. I'm gonna go on with the rest of my day, live my life. I hope you guys do the same.